Engineers reporting having performed spin-up, takeoff, climb, hover, descent, landing, touchdown, and spin down. Altimeter data confirms that Ingenuity has performed its first flight of a powered aircraft on another planet.
NASA's Mars rovers have captured images of spacecraft wreckage scattered across the Martian surface, sparking questions about our missions to the Red Planet. Could these discoveries hint at hidden dangers? Or are they a reminder of how far we've come in our path to understand Mars? Let us dive into these shocking findings of the spacecraft left by a more advanced civilization than ours. Mars rovers find evidence of spacecrafts. One of the most incredible parts about exploring Mars is just how big and ambitious it all is. Sending a rover to another planet isn't just some small technical feat. It's a massive milestone in human history. The wild part is, as these missions move forward, they end up leaving little pieces of themselves scattered around, literally. Both Perseverance and Curiosity, our trusty Martian rovers, have stumbled upon bits of the very spacecraft that got them there. Parachutes, heat shields, broken back shells. These are the leftovers of humanity's crazy attempt to reach and explore another world. Before we delve into this, it's clear that what these rovers uncovered is far more unexpected than anyone could have predicted, and it's not the only thing that will leave you stunned. Take Perseverance, for example, which landed back in February of 2021. The rover's cameras started taking photos almost as soon as it touched down. And what did it find? Fragments of its own entry and landing gear just lying around, scattered across the Martian dirt. We're talking about parachutes that are now limp and lifeless, a heat shield that looks like it got banged up real good during its fall, and even the back shell that once kept it safe in space. To a lot of people, this might look like trash, but to the engineers and scientists back here on Earth, it's all part of the amazing story of how Perseverance got there in the first place. Perseverance is packed with all sorts of high-tech gear, but its Mastcam Z system is really something special. This zoomable camera lets the rover snap high-def images of whatever's around it, even the very things that helped it land. Imagine standing on Mars, staring at this alien, dusty landscape, and seeing a tattered piece of parachute fabric caught on some rocks. For the people who designed the landing system, that's not just a piece of junk. It's a learning opportunity. They study every scratch, every tear, trying to understand how well their work stood up to Mars's harsh conditions. And it wasn't just Perseverance alone up there. Its little flying buddy, Ingenuity, a small helicopter, also played a part in these discoveries. Ingenuity flew over the Jezero crater, taking some pretty awesome aerial shots of the back shell and parachute, showing the debris from an angle that's completely different. Seeing these pieces from above isn't just about cool photos. It's a reminder of how far we've come in space exploration. We've got robots taking pictures of other robots on another planet. Perseverance isn't the only one up there finding pieces of the past. Curiosity, its older sibling, has been roaming around Mars since 2012. It didn't have a helicopter sidekick, but Curiosity has still managed to come across parts of its own landing gear. Not long after it landed in Gale Crater, it found its heat shield nearby, just sitting there, a shiny, battered metal disc against the red soil. These finds aren't just sentimental, they're full of valuable info for NASA. Engineers look at how these parts held up during the rough ride down to the Martian surface. Each dent, bend, and crack tells them something that can be used to make future missions safer and better. Sometimes Curiosity even stumbles upon other unexpected signs of human activity, small reminders that we've left our mark on this far-off planet. These moments are rare, but when they happen, they're powerful. They remind us that humanity is slowly but surely expanding its reach, leaving signs of our curiosity and ambition millions of miles away. You might think, why is finding broken pieces of spacecraft on Mars even a big deal? Isn't that just where they're supposed to end up? Sure, but these discoveries are about more than just finding some old metal parts. They hold deep significance for science, engineering, and even how we think about ourselves as explorers. Studying these materials helps us understand how stuff holds up on Mars, which is critical for future missions. The planet is tough. Thin atmosphere, freezing temperatures, and constant radiation bombardment. Examining the wear and tear on these fragments can help us figure out what will work and what won't when we're finally ready to send humans there. The parts scattered across Mars don't just tell a story about machines. They show how we are changing the way we explore space, leaving marks on the red planet. There's also a bigger picture we've got to look at. The more we send robots to Mars, the more we're leaving behind, creating space junk, even on other planets. These scattered pieces of Perseverance, Curiosity, and future missions are all adding up, showing how our presence is growing. It's exciting to think that future astronauts might find these relics, but it also makes you think about how we're managing our trash in places that aren't even Earth. Are we just going to litter other planets too? And there's something kind of philosophical here too. Seeing parts of our spacecraft lying on Mars is a real reminder of how incredible our path has been. We've built machines that traveled millions of miles to another world, and now the remnants of those machines are just lying there, silent proof of our ability to push boundaries. These bits of metal, fabric, and technology tell a story of dreams, risks, and the sheer will to explore. Even as Perseverance and Curiosity move forward with their missions, they're always linking back to what came before them. Every time they photograph a piece of old spacecraft, they're not just documenting their own story, they're connecting the dots between the past and future of space exploration. It's kind of beautiful when you think about it. These robots exploring new frontiers while paying homage to the steps we took to get there. For the next generation of scientists and engineers, these images could be the spark that ignites their passion for space. Imagine being a kid, scrolling through pictures of Mars and seeing Perseverance's parachute half buried in Martian soil. That could be the moment that inspires them to pursue a career in space exploration. And who knows? Maybe one day that kid will grow up to be the astronaut who actually steps onto Mars, picks up that parachute, and turns it into a piece of history. Of course, it's important to remember that while Perseverance and Curiosity have found spacecraft pieces, that's just a tiny part of why they're on Mars. These rovers are there to answer the really big questions. Could there have been life on Mars? What can this planet tell us about the early history of our own world? What does it mean for humans to explore the stars? The debris they find is just a side story in a much bigger narrative, one that's about understanding our universe and our place within it. The spacecraft fragments are like the breadcrumbs left behind during this incredible adventure. They show us that exploration isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's messy, full of trials and errors, and leaves pieces of itself in its wake. But those pieces are more than just garbage. They're evidence of a species that refuses to stay put, a species that wants to reach for the stars, no matter the cost. There's something deeply emotional about seeing these fragments. They might not be footprints, but they serve the same purpose. They're proof that we've been there, that we've stepped outside our comfort zone and ventured into the unknown. For the engineers and scientists who built these missions, seeing those photos must be surreal. Imagine working on a piece of equipment for years, pouring your heart and soul into it, and then one day seeing it lying on the Martian surface. It's like a piece of your life's work frozen in time on another planet. For the rest of us, these images are powerful in a different way. They make Mars feel real, not just some tiny red dot in the sky. We're not just sending signals or looking at fuzzy telescope photos anymore. We've put our technology on the ground, and it's taking selfies and sending them back to us. Mars is no longer an abstract idea. It's a place we've been to and will go back to. As exploration continues, there's no doubt that Perseverance, Curiosity, and future rovers will keep finding spacecraft fragments. Each piece will have its own story, its own set of lessons for us to learn. And all of these stories will add up, becoming part of the tapestry of our path into the cosmos. But what's even more exciting is imagining the day when humans finally set foot on Mars. When that day comes, all these fragments of spacecraft will suddenly become even more significant. They'll be relics of the path that got us there, preserved not in some glass case, but by Mars itself. Maybe future astronauts will gather them, study them, or even put them on display as a tribute to the human spirit. Until then, Perseverance and Curiosity will keep doing what they do, exploring, taking photos, and every now and then, reminding us just how far we've come. Every find, from bits of soil to broken spacecraft, helps us understand Mars' past and imagine what it could mean for the future. Digging into Mars's hidden past. The significance of these Mars missions goes beyond the mere technical success of landing robots on another planet. It's also about the way we're piecing together a greater understanding of Mars's history, environment, and potential for harboring life. Every scrap, every bit of old machinery, and every footprint of exploration adds another chapter to a story that's still being written. Mars is often portrayed as a dry, desolate wasteland, a place that is unforgiving and void of any signs of life. And sure, much of it is. The cold temperatures, thin atmosphere, and dusty landscapes certainly make it a harsh environment. But perseverance and curiosity are not just looking for signs of what's on the surface. They're looking for what lies underneath it. Evidence of water, signs of ancient rivers, and maybe even the proof that microbial life once existed there. Every time they drill into the Martian rock or scoop up some of that reddish soil, they're taking a step closer to answering the fundamental questions of existence. Are we alone in the universe? Could life have evolved on Mars in the distant past? Think of the Martian soil as a history book that's been waiting for billions of years to be read. It holds clues about the planet's past, and it's up to our rovers to uncover those questions. The fragments from landing gear or discarded parachutes are more than just leftover pieces of technology. They are markers of how far our ambitions have taken us. They're symbols of the learning curve we're riding, making mistakes, testing our limits, and inching closer to making the impossible a reality. The path to Mars isn't just one of exploration, but also of endurance. Take Perseverance's search for signs of past life, for example. One of its main goals is to find areas of Jezero crater that might have once been habitable. The crater itself was likely once a massive lake, filled with water billions of years ago. This makes it the perfect spot to search for biosignatures, organic compounds that might point to ancient life. That's why Perseverance is equipped with so many specialized tools to scan the rocks, analyze the soil, and take microscopic images of anything interesting that it comes across. These fragments of landing gear we keep talking about might seem insignificant compared to that bigger mission. However, they play a key role in helping engineers and scientists understand what it takes to survive on Mars. Every piece tells us something about the environment and helps future missions become even more efficient and better equipped to handle the challenges that come with interplanetary travel. And speaking of challenges, Ingenuity, the little helicopter companion, deserves a special mention here. Its presence on Mars is not just an added bonus. It's a major achievement in its own right. Flying in the thin Martian atmosphere is not an easy feat. The atmosphere is only about 1% as dense as Earth's, which means flying a helicopter there is roughly equivalent to trying to fly it at an altitude of 100,000 feet on Earth. But Ingenuity did it, and it keeps doing it. Its aerial shots have not only given us a unique perspective on the Martian landscape, but have also paved the way for future exploration strategies. Imagine a future where a whole fleet of small, agile drones accompanies rovers across Mars. They could cover rough terrain, scout ahead, and identify points of interest for the rover to explore. Ingenuity is the first step toward that vision, and during its flights, it's come across its own landing site and pieces of the very gear that got it there. These aren't just random scraps. They're part of the path, a path that's pushing the limits of what we thought possible. Now, if you think about Curiosity, it's been on Mars for more than a decade. Imagine that, 10 years of exploring an alien world, taking countless samples, photos, and measurements. Curiosity's discovery of its own landing gear was a reminder of where it all started. It was a moment for the team back on Earth to reflect on how far they'd come. Back then, in 2012, landing a rover the size of a small car on Mars was nothing short of miraculous. And now, here we are, with Curiosity still climbing up Mount Sharp, still collecting data, and still contributing to our understanding of the Red Planet. As Curiosity keeps rolling along, it has also faced its own share of challenges. The Martian terrain is not exactly rover-friendly. There are rocks, sand dunes, and steep slopes that make driving difficult. Curiosity's wheels have taken quite a beating over the years, with some of the metal even getting punctured by sharp rocks. But the rover keeps moving, undeterred by the harsh environment. And it's in those moments when it finds a piece of its landing gear or when it takes a photo of its own battered wheels that we get a glimpse of the incredible resilience required for these missions. The pieces left behind on Mars are not just trash, They show how far we've come and help us plan for what's next in exploring new worlds. The first steps toward Mars samples. There's a lot of talk about space junk here on Earth, all the old satellites and debris floating around in orbit. But it's not just an Earth problem anymore. With every mission we send to Mars, we're also leaving behind more stuff. Parachutes, back shells, heat shields, they're all out there, scattered across the Martian landscape. Right now, it's not a huge issue because there's plenty of room, and we're only just starting to explore. But as we ramp up our efforts to explore and eventually settle on Mars, we'll need to think about how we manage this interplanetary littering. The rovers themselves are already symbols of our ambition, and every day they spend on Mars, they contribute a little more to the growing story of human exploration. Perseverance isn't just collecting rock samples, it's preparing for the future. Many of the samples it collects will eventually be sent back to Earth, the first ever Martian rock samples to make the path home. That's another incredible part of this mission. The idea that in a few years we could have a piece of Mars right here on Earth, ready to be studied by scientists in a lab. The Mars sample return mission is already in the works, and it's going to be a collaboration between NASA and the European Space Agency. It'll involve sending another spacecraft to Mars, picking up the samples Perseverance has collected, and then blasting them back to Earth. It sounds like science fiction, but it's happening. And when those samples get here, they'll be studied for clues about Mars's past, its geology, and whether or not it could have supported life. The fragments of Perseverance's landing gear scattered across the Martian landscape are part of that larger story, a story of how we're learning to explore new worlds and bring a part of them back with us. Mars has always captured our imagination, from ancient astronomers looking up at the night sky to modern-day scientists sending robots to roam its surface. It's a planet that's both familiar and alien. We can see it with the naked eye, but it's also a place that's incredibly difficult to get to and even harder to survive on. The challenges are immense, but that's what makes our efforts so inspiring. We're learning how to land on Mars, how to move around on its surface, and eventually, how to live there. The fragments left behind by Perseverance, Curiosity, and other missions are symbols of that learning process. They're the physical remnants of our progress, the markers of what it takes to become a species capable of exploring other planets. Every piece of landing gear, every broken back shell, and every tattered parachute tells us that exploration isn't easy. It's full of setbacks, challenges, and risks, but it's also full of triumphs, discoveries, and moments of pure wonder. And that's the real beauty of Mars exploration. It's not just about the scientific data or the technological achievements. It's about the spirit of discovery. It's about standing on the edge of what's known and taking that next step into the unknown. The rovers are doing it now, inch by inch, camera by camera, and one day humans will do it too. They'll stand on Mars, look back at Earth, and know that they're part of a path that started with small steps and brave machines. As Perseverance and Curiosity continue their missions, they're not just gathering data, they're laying the groundwork for something much bigger. The fragments they've found, and the ones they've left behind, are all part of a larger story. It's a story of exploration, of pushing boundaries, and of daring to dream big. And as we look forward to the day when humans set foot on Mars, these rovers will be remembered as the pioneers that made it all possible. The path to Mars is not a straight line. It's a path full of twists and turns, setbacks and breakthroughs. And along the way, we're leaving behind pieces of ourselves, pieces that tell the story of our ambition, our determination, and our never-ending desire to explore. One day, when humans walk on Mars, they'll see those fragments scattered across the landscape, and they'll know that they're not just walking on a new planet. They're walking in the footsteps of the robots that came before them, the machines that blazed the trail and made it all possible. Until then, Perseverance and Curiosity will keep doing what they do best, exploring, discovering, and reminding us just how far we've come and how far we still have to go. Every photo they take, every rock they analyze, and every fragment they stumble upon is another step forward in humanity's path to the stars. Are the spacecraft remnants on Mars just harmless debris? Or could they point to something NASA isn't telling us? Share your thoughts and remember to like and subscribe for more.